My name is Sandra Cole. I'm 38 years old. 16 months ago, my brother changed the alarm code on our father's house, forwarded Dad's mail to his own address, and told everyone in our family that Dad had asked to cut me off completely. When I showed up at the door, he threatened to call the police on me, while I was standing on the porch of the house I grew up in. For over a year, I didn't know if my father was eating. I didn't know if his heart medication was being refilled. I sent cards. I left voicemails. I drove past the house just to see if the lights were on. Eventually, I hired a private investigator. What he found didn't just destroy me, it ended in an arrest on New Year's Eve. Stay with me, because this story takes every turn you won't see coming. Before I go on, subscribe to the channel if you believe the truth always comes out, because what I discovered about my brother was far worse than I imagined. Let me take you back about 2.5 years. Carver Falls, Georgia, population just over 5,000. The kind of place where the woman at the post office remembers your grandmother's name and the hardware store still runs a tab for loyal customers. I grew up there, on Mill Pond Road, half a mile from the elementary school, 2 streets over from the Baptist church where Dad sang in the choir every Sunday morning for 30 years. My father, Raymond Cole, was 71 that spring. He'd lived in the same brick ranch house for 34 years, the one with the big magnolia tree out front that he trimmed himself every fall until his back stopped letting him. My mother passed 4 years before that. After we lost her, Dad leaned harder on both of us, my older brother Kevin and me. Kevin is 6 years older. He was always the responsible one on paper, the one who handled the finances, filed the taxes, knew which drawer held the insurance documents. I was the one who actually showed up. Twice a week, sometimes more, I'd drive over after my shift at the county hospital where I work as a registered nurse, and I'd cook dinner, organize Dad's medications, sit with him through his evening news program because he hated watching it alone. So when Dad decided he needed a power of attorney drawn up, someone to handle things if his health got worse, he asked Kevin. Dad was sharp then. He signed the paperwork at a lawyer's office with full understanding of what he was granting. I didn't object. Kevin was the organized one. I was the one with the casserole dish. I had no reason to be suspicious. I should have been. The control didn't show up all at once. It never does. It seeps in, quietly, gradually, one small excuse at a time. First, it was the phone calls. I'd call Dad on a Wednesday and Kevin would answer. He's resting. Try him tomorrow. Tomorrow, he had a rough night. I'll pass along the message. The message never got passed. Then I found out Dad's cardiologist, Dr. Osai, who had managed his heart condition for 9 years, had been switched. Kevin transferred him to a new doctor across the county that none of us had ever heard of. Dad wanted someone closer to home, Kevin told me when I asked. Then my visits started getting managed. I used to come over whenever I wanted. It was Dad's house and I had a key, but Kevin started calling ahead of my arrivals with excuses. Dad's not up for company today. He's having a bad week. Give him some space. I kept adjusting. I told myself Kevin was stressed, that caregiving was hard, that I was reading too much into it. Then, one Tuesday evening, I drove over without calling first, still in my scrubs. The porch light was off. I walked in through the unlocked side door, the one Dad always left open for me. Dad was sitting in his recliner, in the dark, no television, no radio, staring at nothing. He looked smaller than the last time I'd seen him. When he heard my footsteps, he turned and the expression on his face stopped me cold. Relief. Pure, desperate relief. He reached out and grabbed my wrist with both hands. "Sandy, don't stop coming. Please don't stop coming." Before I could answer, the kitchen light flicked on. Kevin stood in the doorway, arms folded. "You should have called first." Not angry, flat, like he'd rehearsed it. 3 weeks after that, I pulled up to the house and tried my key. It didn't work. The lock had been replaced, shiny new hardware on the front door and the side entrance both. I knocked. Renee opened the door just enough to block the hallway behind her. Kevin says this isn't a good time. Renee, that is my father's house. You'll need to talk to Kevin. She closed the door, quietly, but I heard the deadbolt turn. I called Kevin. He answered immediately, like he'd been waiting by the phone. The new locks are for Dad's safety. There's been suspicious activity in the neighborhood. The next morning, I called the Carver Falls Police non-emergency line and asked about recent incidents on Mill Pond Road. The dispatcher checked. Nothing in the past 8 months.
I called Dad's cell every single day. Kevin answered every time. He's not feeling up to talking. He doesn't want to be disturbed. He asked me to tell you to give him some time. I started sending cards and letters instead, handwritten ones, on the cream stationery Dad always said looked elegant. I wrote about my shifts, about the dogwood tree in my yard that had finally bloomed, about small, ordinary things that would let him know I was still right there. Every single one came back, returned to sender, Kevin's handwriting across the front. I called Dad's church, Mount Calvary Baptist, where he had been a deacon for over 2 decades. The church secretary told me Raymond hadn't attended in 4 months. Dad never missed church. He had gone with pneumonia. He had gone the Sunday after Mom's funeral because he said it was what she would have wanted. He had never, in 30 years, missed 4 consecutive months. I filed a report with Adult Protective Services. I gave them everything I had: the new locks, the intercepted calls, the returned letters, the missed church, a photo Kevin had posted on Facebook where Dad looked gaunt, his collar too loose, his eyes unfocused. APS sent an investigator on a Friday. Kevin was home. What the investigator found when she walked through the door? A tidy living room, fresh flowers on the coffee table, Dad dressed in clean clothes and seated comfortably on the couch with a glass of sweet tea in his hand. Kevin standing at the door with the expression of a man who had been waiting patiently through an enormous injustice. My sister hasn't visited in months. She has her own life. I understand that. But I've been doing this completely on my own, cooking, managing his medications, driving him to appointments. I'm not complaining. This is family. But it has not been easy. The investigator spent 50 minutes, checked the refrigerator, talked to Dad, looked around. Her report came back with 5 words that gutted me. No indicators of neglect or abuse. Kevin called our Aunt Brenda that same evening. By Sunday, the story had traveled through 3 generations of our family. Sandra filed a complaint against her own brother. Sandra is trying to cause trouble. Sandra is the one who stopped visiting. Kevin has documentation. I didn't have documentation. I had the truth. And at that moment, the truth wasn't enough. 4 days after the APS visit, my phone rang. Unfamiliar number. Is this Sandra Cole? My name is Walter Briggs. I live across the street from your daddy. Walter was 75. He'd been on Mill Pond Road for 26 years. Young lady, I don't know the whole story, but I know that the morning before those people came to do the inspection, Kevin was at the house at 6:30 a.m. cleaning. And I know because I take my walk at 6 every morning, and I watched him carry 3 bags of groceries inside from his truck. Then Walter told me something else. About 6 weeks earlier, Dad had come out to the mailbox on a weekday morning, which Kevin didn't know because Kevin usually beat him to it, and he'd waved Walter over. Dad had asked Walter if he knew how to reach me. Walter had taken down my number. He had tried to call me twice. I checked my blocked contacts list while Walter was still on the phone. His number was there. I had never blocked it. I had never had any reason to. But 2 months before that, Kevin had come to my apartment to help me set up a new phone. He'd been there for about 40 minutes. 40 minutes was more than enough. That night, I sat in the parking lot of a gas station on Route 7, still in my work clothes, engine running, window fogging, and I opened my phone and searched elder law attorney Carver Falls, Georgia. The second result was a woman named Patricia Odom. Her reviews kept repeating one phrase: she took my case seriously when everyone else told me to let it go. I called her office at 8 the next morning.
Patricia was 61, reading glasses, a precise handshake, a desk organized with a kind of quiet authority that told you she had seen worse than this and won. She sat down, opened a fresh legal pad, and said 3 words: "Tell me everything." I talked for 45 minutes. She wrote continuously. When I finished, she set her pen down and asked 4 questions. Did Raymond have a formal diagnosis of cognitive decline? Had Kevin ever provided a financial accounting since receiving the POA? Had anyone independent of the family expressed concern about Dad's situation? And was there anything unusual about Kevin's lifestyle in the past year? New purchases, renovations, anything that seemed beyond his means? I thought about it. Kevin and Renee had redone their kitchen last summer, new car in the driveway before Christmas. Kevin had mentioned offhandedly that he'd sorted out some old debts. Patricia folded her hands. A power of attorney is not a blank check. The agent has a fiduciary duty, a legal obligation to act solely in the interest of the person who granted it, not in their own interest, not for convenience, solely for your father. If Kevin cannot account for how he has managed your father's finances, that is not a gray area. That is grounds for legal action. She laid out the plan.
First, a demand for full financial accounting. Certified letter, 30 days to comply. Second, a private investigator running a parallel financial trace at the same time. Third, petition to revoke the POA if Kevin refused to respond. In my experience, she said, the people who fight hardest to keep family away from an elderly parent are almost never doing it out of love. They are doing it out of financial interest. The demand letter went out certified mail on a Thursday. Kevin signed for it on Saturday. He called me Sunday morning, first time he had dialed my number voluntarily in over 6 months. "A lawyer, Sandra? You're dragging our family through this." "I'm requesting a financial accounting. That's your legal obligation, Kevin." "Dad is fine. I handle everything. You have no idea." "Then show the records. You have 30 days. The line cut out. Within 72 hours, Kevin had called Aunt Brenda, our cousin Marcus, 3 people from Dad's church, and our Uncle Roy. Same message to every one of them, that I had hired a lawyer to challenge the POA so I could take control of Dad's money for myself. The accurate version of events, that I had simply asked for a financial accounting that Kevin was legally required to provide, didn't travel the same way. It wasn't upsetting enough. Kevin's version was better theater. 30 days passed. No response, no records, no attorney letter from Kevin's side. Patricia was not surprised. In 24 years, I have never seen an innocent agent refuse a lawful accounting request, not one time. She slid a business card across the desk. Darren Fossey, licensed private investigator, financial forensics, former law enforcement, 8 years with the state attorney's office in their elder fraud division. If the money moved, he'll find where it went. I met Darren at a diner off the interstate. Late 50s, deliberate, ordered water without looking at the menu. He listened the whole way through without interrupting. When I finished, he opened a small notebook. He needed Dad's full legal name, date of birth, bank names, account types, Kevin's full name, Renee's full name, their home address. Then one more question. When did Kevin renovate the kitchen? Last summer, July or August, I think. He wrote it down, closed the notebook. People who take from family always spend it fast, and they always spend it on the house. I need you to stay with me. What Darren found 7 weeks later, I'm going to read you the numbers, every single one. If you have ever fought your own family to protect someone you loved, type "I understand" in the comments right now, and don't go anywhere. 7 weeks later, Darren called and asked me to come to his office. He didn't tell me what he'd found. He just said, "You may want to have someone with you." I went alone. His office was a small converted house near the edge of town. He had a whiteboard on the wall covered in arrows and circled dates and account numbers, and he had a folder on the desk that was 2 inches thick. He opened it, turned it toward me. Over the past 16 months, I've traced 38 separate transfers from your father's accounts, checking, savings, and a joint CD account your parents held together, into accounts tied to Kevin and Renee. He flipped to the summary page. The total was circled in red ink.
$191,000. My hands went cold. He kept going, line by line. $43,000 to their mortgage lender, 4 months of payments made directly from Dad's savings, $31,000 to an automotive dealership, Renee's new car, $26,000 to a kitchen renovation contractor, flooring company, and a landscaping company, all work done at Kevin and Renee's home address, $19,000 to a private university, tuition for Kevin's son from his first marriage, the remaining $72,000 distributed across credit card balances, retail charges, restaurant bills, a resort in Florida, and cash withdrawals. Your father's total savings when Kevin received the POA were $244,000. His balance as of last week, $53,000. I set the paper down. Darren pulled out one more page. Your father's cell phone records. In the past 16 months, he attempted to call your number 31 times. Every call was disconnected in under 8 seconds. Someone was terminating those calls before they could connect. 31 times. 31 times my father reached for the phone and was stopped.
Patricia spread Darren's documents across her conference table the next morning. She read every page without speaking, made 3 notes in the margins, sat back. This is criminal. This is not a civil dispute. This is elder financial exploitation, and under Georgia law, what's documented in these pages constitutes a felony. 3 steps. She spoke the way someone speaks when they have done this many times and they intend to win. First, petition to revoke the power of attorney in probate court, filed immediately. Second, the full evidence package sent to the district attorney's office, $191,000 drained from a 71-year-old man with a documented cardiac condition and emerging cognitive decline. The DA will not ignore this. Third, Adult Protective Services, again, different investigator, unannounced, this time with Darren's financial evidence attached. Sandra, she looked at me, if the DA moves forward, your brother is looking at prison time, a felony conviction. I want you to understand what you're setting in motion. I understand. I want my father to be safe. The second APS visit happened the following Wednesday while Kevin was at work. Renee answered the door, looked uncertain, and let the investigator in. Dad was in his bedroom at 11 in the morning with the curtains drawn. He came out when he heard a woman's voice, shuffled into the living room in his house slippers, blinking in the light. The investigator's name was Donna. She sat across from him and introduced herself calmly. Dad's first words were a question. "Did Sandra send you? Is Sandra okay?" Donna asked when he had last spoken to me. He pressed his lips together. "It's been a long time. I've tried to call her. The calls don't seem to go through. Kevin said she got a new number and didn't give it to the family." "Do you have access to your bank accounts, Raymond? Do you review your statements?" "Kevin handles all that. He brings me papers to sign sometimes. I trust him." "Do you know approximately how much money you have in savings?" Dad was quiet for a long moment. "I used to know. I stopped getting the mail a while back. Kevin said he'd take care of it." Donna's report that afternoon cited concerns for financial exploitation and social isolation and recommended urgent follow-up. She called me the following morning. "Mr. Cole asked about you 14 times during a 40-minute interview." The DA's office verified every number Darren had found, independently through subpoenaed bank records, and confirmed they matched his documentation exactly. The assistant district attorney assigned to the case was a woman named Claire Hutchins. She had the financial summary open on her desk when I came in. $191,000 taken over 16 months from a man with a documented heart condition and early-stage cognitive decline. That exceeds the felony threshold for elder financial exploitation in Georgia by a significant margin. She submitted the arrest warrant application to a judge on December 29th. It was approved 2 days later. Kevin's New Year's Eve dinner party was the following night. December 31st.
Cold, clear night, temperature in the high 20s, the kind of Georgia winter cold that surprises you every year because you think you've forgotten what it feels like. Kevin and Renee's house, the one with the new kitchen, the new floors, the new car in the driveway, was fully lit for the party. String lights on the fence, candles in every window. Inside, through the front room glass, I could count at least 12 people. Aunt Brenda and her husband, Uncle Roy, our cousin Marcus and his girlfriend, a few of Kevin's neighbors, Renee's sister and her husband, and Dad, sitting in a chair near the far wall, away from the group, in a pressed button-down shirt that looked like someone had put it on him, holding a ginger ale with both hands, not talking to anyone. Kevin moved through the room easy and comfortable, laughing at his own jokes, filling glasses, working the space. I was not there for any of that. I was parked on a side street 1 block over, engine on, heater running, phone face up on the passenger seat. At 8:59 p.m., my phone buzzed. A text from Claire Hutchins. Warrant is being executed now.
At 8:58, the doorbell rang at Kevin's house. He answered it himself, smiles still on his face, a glass of sparkling cider in his right hand. 2 Carver County Sheriff's deputies, standing square, breath showing in the cold air. Kevin Raymond Mercer, we have an active warrant for your arrest on charges of felony financial exploitation of an elder adult. The smile didn't disappear. It just stopped working, like the muscles forgot what they were doing. I'm sorry, what? Sir, please step outside. He turned back to the room, and the room was already silent. 12 people frozen in 12 different positions, mid-sip, mid-sentence, holding plates, holding phones, all of them looking at the front door. Aunt Brenda lowered her glass. Kevin's voice pitched up, faster than I'd ever heard it. This is Sandra. This is my sister doing this. She's been trying to tear this family apart for over a year. Don't believe... Sir, please step outside now. It's New Year's Eve. It is New Year's Eve. The warrant is valid. Please come with us. Renee made a sound I can't describe. Kevin handed his glass to no one. It just sat in the air for a moment before someone took it. He walked to the door. One of the deputies guided his hands behind his back. The handcuffs closed. Dad watched from his chair across the room. He didn't move. He didn't speak. He just watched his son walk out the front door between 2 uniformed officers into the cold and the dark. Somebody turned the music off. The room held its breath. I know some of you right now feel like you can't breathe. I know because I lived it. Stay with me through the next few minutes, because what happened inside that room, what Dad said when the door closed, is what I still think about every single morning. If this story has moved you, subscribe before you forget. We're almost at the end, and it is worth it. It was Aunt Brenda who moved first. She crossed the room and sat next to Dad. She didn't say anything clever. She just sat down and put her hand over his. For a moment, Dad was completely still, eyes on the door Kevin had just walked out of. Then he exhaled, long and slow, like something had been wound up tight inside him for a very long time, and it had finally, in that moment, let go. I need you to call Sandra. His voice was quiet, but it was steady. Kevin told me she moved. He said she'd stopped caring about what happened to us after Mom died. He said she'd changed her number and hadn't left a new one. Aunt Brenda shook her head. Raymond, that's not... I know. He looked at her. I know that now. I've known it for a while. I didn't know what to do. Kevin handles everything. The accounts, the mail, the phone. He paused. There was a morning I got to the mailbox before he did, and there was a card from Sandra, a birthday card. He must not have seen it come. I read it in the bathroom with the door locked, and then I hid it in my shoe because I didn't know what he'd do if he found it. He hid it in his shoe? Uncle Roy, standing by the window, turned his face away. I tried to call her, Dad said, a lot. I don't know what was happening with the phone. The calls never seemed to connect. I thought maybe she really was gone. Aunt Brenda already had her phone to her ear. My number. 1 ring. 2. I answered from the car, 1 block away, engine still running. Sandra.
Brenda's voice broke in half. "Come and get your daddy right now." I drove the block in under a minute, left the car at an angle against the curb. The front door was standing open, the string light still on, people still scattered through the rooms, not quite knowing where to put themselves. I walked through the door. I didn't look at anyone else. Dad was still in the chair. He saw me come in and he put both hands on the armrests and pushed himself up to standing. Slowly, effortfully, but he stood. He was thinner than the last time I had held him. The button-down shirt hung loose off his shoulders. He looked at me across the room. 16 months, he said. His voice cracked on the second word. Dad, I never stopped, not one day. I got to him in about 4 steps. He grabbed me like someone grabs the railing of a ship in rough water, both arms, full grip, face pressed into my shoulder. He smelled like the same soap he'd used my whole life, Old Spice and something warm underneath. I don't know how long we stood there. Uncle Roy's voice somewhere behind me, rough and quiet. "Sandra, I'm sorry. I told you to back off. I had no idea." I looked at him over Dad's shoulder. "None of you did. That was the whole plan." I got Dad's coat from the closet. I walked him out through the front door, past the string lights and Renee's new car, and I drove him home. No Happy New Year, just his hand in mine and the road.
Kevin spent New Year's night in the Carver County Detention Center. Renee posted bail the following morning. The charges were formal, specific, and serious. Felony financial exploitation of an elder adult, theft over $100,000, both felonies under Georgia law. The probate judge reviewed the complete financial documentation, Darren's surveillance logs, and the second APS report. He revoked Kevin's power of attorney in a 12-minute hearing. Kevin wasn't present. His criminal attorney had advised him not to attend. I was appointed temporary guardian. The court issued a protective order. Kevin was barred from accessing any of Dad's financial accounts, making any medical decisions on his behalf, or contacting him without court supervision. During the broader financial review, the DA's office surfaced one more detail. 14 months into the scheme, Kevin had called Dad's life insurance provider and attempted to update the beneficiary designation, moving it from me to himself. The form had been submitted with Dad's signature, barely legible, dated the same week Walter Briggs saw Kevin drive Dad somewhere and bring him back visibly upset. When Patricia told me, she paused before she finished the sentence. "There's more here than we originally understood." The plea negotiation concluded in April. Kevin entered a guilty plea to 1 count of felony financial exploitation. The sentencing terms: 5 years supervised probation, 240 hours of community service, full restitution of the stolen funds, and a permanent legal bar from involvement in Raymond Cole's financial or medical affairs. At the plea hearing, Kevin stood before the judge in a gray suit. "I never intended for it to go this far." The judge looked at him for a long moment. "The evidence does not support that statement, Mr. Mercer." I sat in the 4th row, hands flat on my knees. I did not look at him once. I converted the spare room of my apartment into a space for Dad, a proper bed, a nightstand, his reading lamp from home, the quilt my mother made him 20 years ago that still smelled like cedar from the chest it had been folded in. No stairs, wide doorways, a bathroom 10 feet from his door. His first physical, with the doctor I chose, was hard to hear. 11 pounds underweight, cardiac monitoring showed his condition had declined without consistent medication management. Early-stage cognitive impairment, not dementia, the doctor said, but real and treatable with structure, nutrition, consistency. "He needs routine," she said. "He needs proper meals, and more than anything, he needs to feel like the world is safe again." By the end of the first month, he was sleeping through the night. One morning in March, I came downstairs and found Dad sitting at the kitchen table with the newspaper open, not reading it exactly, just looking at it, with a cup of coffee going cold beside him. When he heard me, he looked up. "You know what I keep thinking about?" he said. I sat across from him. "I keep thinking about how many times I picked up that phone, and every time I thought, maybe this time it'll go through." He looked at his hands. 31 times, Sandra. That's what you told me. 31.
He was quiet for a while. I want you to know that every one of those times, it wasn't because I doubted you. I just couldn't understand why you weren't there. I know, Dad. I know you know. He picked up the coffee, took a sip even though it was cold. I just needed to say it out loud. He went back to Mount Calvary Baptist on a Sunday in late March, first time in over a year, sat in his regular pew, shook the pastor's hand afterward, and received it like it was nothing unusual, the way Dad does. Chin up, firm grip, move on.
His neighbor, Mr. Briggs, started coming by on Tuesday afternoons. They'd sit on the front stoop of my apartment building and talk about baseball and local politics and argue pleasantly about nothing important, the way men who have known each other for decades are able to do. By May, Dad had started asking about a garden. I bought him 2 tomato plants and a bag of potting soil, and we put them on the balcony together. He pressed the soil down with his bare palms the way he always did in the backyard on Mill Pond Road, and when he stood back up and looked at what we'd done, he said, "Your mama would have put in twice as many." "Next year, Dad." He smiled. "First real one since I brought him home." New Year's Eve, 1 year later. My apartment. Small. The kind of small that means you know exactly where everyone is at all times, which tonight I don't mind at all. The table fits 5 if nobody gestures too wide. Tonight there are 5. Me, Dad, Aunt Brenda, Walter Briggs from across the street at the old house, and Kevin's son from his first marriage, my nephew Deshaun, who is 22 and took the bus across town to be here because he said he couldn't spend the evening anywhere else. He washed every dish without being asked. He is quieter than he used to be. He is here. That is enough. Dad sits at the head of the table. Good color in his face, weight back where it should be. His hands still shake a little when he pours, but his grip when he holds mine is strong. He says grace. He doesn't make it long. Thank you for this table, for the people at it, and for the daughter who did not give up. He finds my hand under the table and holds it. Last New Year's Eve, my brother stood in a house paid for with my father's savings and made toasts about family. This New Year's Eve, my father is sitting in my kitchen, holding my hand, eating the sweet potato pie I learned to make from our neighbor, Mrs. Briggs, because it is Dad's favorite, and I never learned it from Mom while I had the chance. It is quieter now, but I have learned that quiet is not the same thing as empty. If you are watching this and something in it sounds familiar, maybe a sibling has power of attorney over your parent and something feels off, maybe you haven't been able to reach them in weeks and you can't fully explain why. Maybe everyone around you believes a version of events that is not true, and you are standing there with the real story and nowhere to put it. I want you to hear this clearly. You are not overreacting. You are not the problem. You do not have to navigate this alone. There are elder law attorneys in every state who will listen to you even when your family will not. There are private investigators who specialize in exactly this, tracing financial movement from power of attorney accounts. There are adult protective services investigators who will open a case a second time if you bring them real, documented evidence. The system failed me the first time. I went back with more, and eventually the truth was too heavy to keep buried. My brother took $191,000 from our father, but what he really took was time. 16 months of Dad sitting alone in a dim room, trying to understand why his daughter had stopped coming. 31 phone calls that died in under 8 seconds. A birthday card hidden in a shoe. I cannot get those 16 months back. Nobody can give them to me. But every morning I bring Dad his coffee, every Tuesday Walter comes by, every Sunday Dad sits in his regular pew. Those are mine, and no one can touch them. If this story moved you, leave me a comment. Tell me where you're watching from. Tell me if you've ever had to fight for someone the people around you refused to protect. And if you are in the middle of something like this right now, you are not alone. Keep going. Subscribe so you don't miss the next story, and check the description. I've linked a video about a woman whose sister tried to sell her mother's house while Mom was still living in it. You'll want to see how that one ends. Thank you for staying with me. I'll see you in the next one.